What if the universe really does run on some kind of backend, and the only reason you've never seen it is that you haven't stared at the right numbers? For quite long enough, I've always had this curiosity, the kind that isn't trying to be a hero, isn't trying to go viral, just wants to see if reality has any little in-jokes hidden in the noise. It's a strange thought, isn't it? That somewhere out there, someone like you, sitting in a small apartment with cold coffee and an old laptop, could trip over a system message that was never meant for human eyes. Not a cosmic prophecy, not an alien broadcast, just a slightly annoyed notification from the help desk that keeps physics from crashing. Because if that's true, then every harmless late-night script you run against public data might not be harmless at all. He's just trying to see if the universe hides any small joke or pattern inside all that deep space noise. On this night, the joke answers back, not with lights in the sky, not with a voice, not with a vision. It answers with a short system. Notice that should not exist, on a screen that should not talk like that, written in a tone that sounds oddly like a calm tech worker talking about a server problem. Jeremy thinks he has made an error. He has not. He has brushed against a part of reality that only maintainers are meant to see, and to the great system that holds stars and time together, he looks less like a threat and more like a possible new hire. You might not just be checking patterns. You might be poking the status page for existence, and the admin on the other side might finally sigh and ping you back. So get comfortable. Let your attention drift from your own day for a while. Because this is a story about what happens when a very ordinary coder runs one more test on some old space noise and accidentally logs a ticket with the people who maintain reality. His name is Jeremy Kline. He lives alone in Phoenix, and tonight has about to see a system alert no human was ever supposed to read. It starts with a man in a quiet apartment staring at numbers while the city outside hums under a warm desert sky. Everyone else in Phoenix is sleeping or streaming shows, but Jeremy Kline is awake with cold coffee and soft music. He is not trying to save the world. He is not trying to be famous. Jeremy liked when the world was quiet. Most nights in late 2090's Phoenix, the heat shields hummed in the sky, keeping the worst of the desert air away. The city lights were softer than they had been decades before, tuned to hurt the night less. Drones drifted overhead like slow fireflies. From his small apartment on the 12th floor, the city felt like a calm machine, steady and low. Inside, his place was a simple mess. 2 screens on the desk, an old gray mug with a coffee ring that never went away, stacks of printouts he kept meaning to toss, a folded exercise mat in the corner he rarely used. Plants lined the window, shaped by light filters to stay small and easy. The air smelled faintly of dust and recycled cool air. Jeremy sat in an old office chair, one ankle hooked over the other knee, back bent just a little too far forward. His dark hair was pulled back with a thin band. His eyes moved from data column to data column as if he was reading a slow story. On his main screen, a public astronomy archive streamed new data from deep space instruments, Planck-scale readings, background radiation maps, spectra from distant galaxies, noise layers stripped down and filtered. Anyone with decent bandwidth could pull these feeds now. Most people ignored them. For Jeremy, they were like gentle rain. They were like gentle rain. He did freelance work to pay rent, small code audits, data dashboards, clean up scripts for research groups. The jobs were not exciting, but they left his nights free. At night, he pointed his tools at the sky. He liked patterns, but he liked honest ones. He did not care about wild theories or secret codes from aliens. He liked it when simple rules made strange shapes, when random noise held some tiny bit of order that no one had noticed yet. This time he was looking at a cleaned-up slice of cosmic background data, a grid of tiny numbers that showed faint variations in the oldest light the universe carried. The archive had been studied to death. There were papers on every angle, but new processing models kept coming out, and new hobbyists kept staring. He ran a small script to search for recursions across the noise, little self-similar patterns that might show up at different scales. He expected nothing. The universe usually gave nothing, at least not at this level. The script finished fast. The log line blinked in the corner of his screen. Jeremy reached for his mug, took a drink of cold coffee, and then frowned. Pattern count. 1, the script output said. That was strange by itself. Most runs ended with 0 or with long lists of junk hits. He scrolled down to see what had tripped the threshold. The screen showed a cluster of values. Background temperature deviations at certain angular distances. They formed a simple shape when graphed like a small step, a drop and a rise. Nothing special, but the distances between each step were important. He ran a quick check. The first gap was some tiny number in degrees. The next gap was a bit wider. The ratio looked familiar. He leaned back, rubbed his eyes, and typed a fast check. The distances matched a list of prime numbers, not just close. They were exact down to the last decimal, adjusted for the scale they were on. One little bump at a distance that matched prime 2, another bump at a distance tied to prime 3, another at prime 5, and so on. Tiny marks in the temperature field at prime-numbered intervals. Jeremy stared at the graph. His first thought was always error. He checked his script line by line. Maybe he had loaded some old demo data by mistake. He pulled the raw file again from the public archive, checked the hash, and reran his code. Pattern count. 1. He tried a different method, using a slower logic that did not trust any of his shortcuts. It took longer. The fan in his old machine came on with a soft whine. The desert outside seemed to press its warmth against the glass. Pattern count. 1. He clicked into the numeric values directly and did rough math in his head, checking the gaps. The primes held. It was like someone had taken a brush to the background grid, leaving tiny marks at prime-numbered distances, then buried it under random noise. He sat back and exhaled, a quiet sound that left the room still again. It has to be a quirk, he said softly, more to break the silence than to make a point. There could be a processing artifact, or some leftover filter from a calibration. The data had gone through many hands. Still, the primes bothered him in a good way. They were simple, but they felt too clean. He opened an obscure forum where hobby data people hung out and posted. Universal Easter egg? He wrote a short note, shared his script, shared the coordinates, marked it as probably nothing, but cute. He smiled a little at the idea that the universe held a small math joke in its oldest light. He hit send and leaned back, expecting a slow trickle of replies over several days. Maybe some math checks, maybe a bored grad student taking it apart. Instead, everything went still. The cursor on his screen froze in place. The smooth loop of his music stuttered, then stopped. For a second, he thought the power had died, but the air system still hummed, and the soft city glow still leaked past his plants. His screen turned black, then filled with plain text. There was no logo, no design, just a short, clear message in a cold default font. He read it once, then again, pulse speeding up despite his calm nature. He was used to bugs. This did not look like a bug. It looked like a system message, like something from under everything else. His machine usually ran. He tried his keyboard. His message. It did not respond. The message remained. He noticed that the lines used his name in a way normal alerts never did. The tone was not dramatic. It was flat, slightly tired, like someone at the end of a long shift. The message told him that he had requested access to a restricted layer. It told him that he had touched a protected region of substrate metadata. It told him that his pattern search had crossed a version tag boundary. He had no idea what that meant. Another line appeared, as if a person on the other side had paused to think. It asked him a simple question in clear words. Did he intend to modify anything? Jeremy let out a shaky laugh. No, he said to the empty room. His hands felt dry. He was a data analyst in a cluttered room, not a hacker pushing at deep systems. He tried to type, no, but the input line was not there. The screen changed again. It said that read-only access could be granted under careful limits. It said that his curiosity had been logged. It said that any further attempts to inspect prime-flagged anomalies would count as a formal request. He swallowed. His heart rate slowed again. Not because he understood, but because the tone felt so normal. It sounded like some giant help desk for existence, sending him a gentle warning. He wanted to understand, but he did not want to break anything. He stared at the last line for a long moment. Then, he did the simplest thing. He clicked the only visible option, request more information. The room seemed to lean around him. His vision softened, like he had stood up too fast. The hum of the air system faded, the city glow outside the window. His hands stayed on the armrests, but his sense of where his body ended, and the room began slipped, as if his brain had decided to put most of its focus somewhere else. The last thing he saw before the apartment went gray was a new message appearing at the very center of his screen. Connecting you to maintainer Israel. Please stand by. Then the world of his room folded into a small, quiet point, and something larger opened around him. Jeremy did not move, but the place around him changed. He was no longer in his Phoenix apartment. He was seated in a simple chair that felt the same under him. But the floor beneath the chair was not wood, not concrete, not any material he knew. It looked like a flat, endless surface made of pale gray light, broken by soft lines and quiet symbols that shifted now and then like a living diagram. There were no walls, yet it did not feel exposed. The space felt like an office, with no edges, full of a gentle certainty that nothing loud would break in here. Above and below, the same soft gray stretched without clear end. In front of him stood something like a desk. It was not really a desk, but his mind decided it might as well be. It was a wide block of faint glowing shapes stacked like panes of glass. On each pane flickered streams of numbers, constants, graphs, and tidy bullet lists of changes. Now and then, a line would shift from red to green or from green to blue. Behind the desk stood a figure. At first, Jeremy thought the figure was human, maybe tall and slim. Then he noticed the edges. The outline of the person was made of symbols, numbers, and short code fragments drifting in a tight cloud. When the figure shifted, the symbols moved and reformed, but the shape stayed steady enough for his mind to accept it. The face was simple, with eyes like two calm points of soft light. The voice, when it came, was smooth and patient, carrying no hint of surprise. Jeremy Kline, the figure, said, "Thank you for waiting." He tried to speak, but his throat felt dry. He swallowed, took a breath, and heard his own voice come out weak but clear. "Where am I?" "Palayer, zero administrative construct," the figure said. "This instance is a low noise contact space. You may think of it as a quiet office, if that helps." Jeremy blinked slowly. His mind latched onto the word office like a handhold. It did help. Offices were safe. Offices were where people solved simple problems with tickets and forms. "And you are?" he asked. "I am Isravel," the figure said. "Mid-tier maintainer, substrate integrity, and entropy support liaison. I handle minor access issues related to base layer metadata tags and version flags across several timelines, including yours." The words should have confused him more than they did. But the calm tone and the gentle way the figure spoke made his fear shrink a bit. It felt less like he had broken reality and more like he had used the wrong login screen. "I ran a script," Jeremy said, "looking for recursions in the background data. I didn't think anything would happen. I just found primes." "Yes," Isravel said. "You located a recursive anomaly signature embedded in your universe's background field. Those signatures form part of the layer, zero metadata. They are not meant for general users." "General users," Jeremy repeated, as if he was just another account on some huge network. "So that pattern is real?" "Yes," Isravel said. "It is a real pattern, intentionally placed. We use prime structures to tag and track substrate versions. They are stable and easy to locate across scales." Jeremy tried to picture this. The universe as a code base. The background radiation as a giant config file, primes as markers. He let the idea settle instead of pushing it away. "You said layer, 0, he said slowly, like a base layer. Correct, Isravel replied. Layer. 0 substrate is your base physical rule set. Constants, interaction forms, allowed states, causal flow templates. Everything your scientists call laws of physics anchors there. Above that, we maintain many layers, localized rules, pocket dimensions, test regions, archived branches. The desk between them shifted. A new pane slid forward, showing a vast tree of lines, each branching into more lines. Tiny digits shimmered. Version numbers, tags, notes. Some lines glowed bright. Others were dim and gray. Like old files, your branch, Israel said, is stable and tagged as a primary long-term run. However, your recent anomaly query touched a region tagged for maintainer use only. That produced the interaction notice you saw. So I triggered a support ticket, Jeremy asked, half nervous, half amused. In effect, Isravel said, your request was logged as a potential substrate access violation, but your pattern of action did not match hostile use. It matched curiosity, statistically consistent with several prior harmless contacts. Hence this conversation. Jeremy's shoulders relaxed a little. He felt like someone who had wandered into an employees-only hallway and been gently guided back out rather than dragged away. You keep calling it curiosity like it's a setting, he said. It is a parameter cluster. Isravel said. Your mind maintains a stable, high interest of low aggression state over long periods. You seek understanding, not leverage. You share results freely. You avoid dramatic action. This profile is rare, but not unique. Jeremy gave a small, tired smile. So boring enough to be safe. Not boring, Isravel said. Predictable, stable. Those are good traits in our work. On the far side of the desk, a few lines of text appeared, hanging in the air. Jeremy could not read the symbols, but he had the sense of a form being updated. You said our work? He noted. Yes, Isravel said. There is an option available. You have already seen more than most baseline users. We cannot fully erase this contact. We can, however, adjust its outcome. A new pane rose between them. It showed something like a job description. Simple fields, short bullet points. For a moment he forgot this was about the structure of reality, because it looked so much like any support role he had seen. Option? Jeremy asked. What kind? Junior Entropy support, Isravel said. Read only access to certain logs and minor controls. You would assist in monitoring small glitches in your local timelines and in nearby branches. Tasks would include flagging recursion anomalies, tagging misaligned constants, and helping to prepare simple patches under supervision. Jeremy stared. You want me to help maintain reality? He said slowly. Like a tech job, you would not touch core rules. You would not alter major events. You would triage small tickets, log patterns, and suggest minor corrections. Think of it as a help desk for entropy drift and casual glitches. He should have felt overwhelmed. Instead, he felt a strange, calm interest. The idea fit into his brain far more easily than talk of heroes and chosen ones would have. A quiet back-office job for the universe. Tickets, patch notes. That somehow felt right. "Why me?" he asked. "You said my profile is rare but not unique. Why not pick someone more impressive?" Isravel's form tilted. Like a thoughtful nod. Highly ambitious beings introduce instability. They replied. They attempt to use access for power or display. They cause merge conflicts. Merge conflicts? Jeremy repeated, thinking of his own code branches. When parallel versions of reality are rejoined, Isravel said, differences must be sorted. Many branches exist to test changes in rule sets or event flows. When they come back together, conflicts in causality, identity, and structure arise. Most are resolvable. Some are not. The desk flickered with a brief image, two timelines trying to join, lines crossing and tangling. Parts could not match, so they were marked in red and set aside. Curiosity that pushes too hard in unstable branches can trigger more splits. Isravel went on. We do not stop curiosity. We try to guide it into stable roles. Your temperament suits maintenance work more than disruption. So you want my curiosity behind a desk? Jeremy said lightly. Yes, Isravel said without humor, where it can help us observe and calm small issues instead of starting new ones. Jeremy thought of his nights in Phoenix, alone with numbers. He thought of his love for clean logs, neat functions, quiet bug reports. He did not like drama. He did not like crowds. He liked knowing that something ran a little smoother because of his small fix. What does strict limits mean? He asked. You'll be bound by access layers, Isravel said. You cannot change core substrate constants. You cannot push direct messages into baseline mines. You will observe, tag, suggest. All changes you draft will pass through higher tier maintainers. And monitoring, we will watch your actions here, Isravel said. Not your private life on Earth. Your mind state will be sampled when you are active in admin constructs. If you drift into dangerous patterns, your access ends. Jeremy nodded slowly. That seemed fair. He was used to logs, audits, checks. It felt less like someone spying on him, and more like any large system watching its own parts. Can I still live my normal life? He asked. Yes, Isravel said. Your baseline life will continue. Contact sessions will occur when you are in a state near sleep or deep focus, as now. Time syncing will be managed so that you remain functional in your primary context. So from my side, it just feels like long nights that get strange sometimes. He said, accurate enough, Isravel replied. He looked around the vast gray office, the calm lines, the quiet flow of numbers, the sense of endless back rooms full of unseen work. It was huge, but it was also just work, careful, patient work. It struck him that this was, in a way, the purest form of what he already did. He watched patterns to keep systems clean. He wrote small fixes no one else would ever read. He did not need glory. He liked being the invisible support. "What happens if I say no?" he asked. "We isolate your access," Isravel said. "We tag your mind as a past contact. We add gentle noise around critical anomalies so you are less likely to notice them again. Your life proceeds. You forget most of this as a strange dream." He sat with that. It did not sound like a threat. It sounded like a neat rollback. "And if I say yes?" he asked. "You begin as a junior Entropy support technician," Isravel said. "You help keep your branch stable. You learn the structure piece by piece. You gain the comfort of knowing how some parts truly work. You carry a small share of the load." Jeremy stared at his hands, resting on the arms of the chair. They looked the same as always. A bit dry, faint lines from long hours at the keyboard. He flexed his fingers, then lifted his gaze. "Can I see the logs?" he asked. "Before I decide?" Isravel's eyes brightened. "Just a little." "Yes," they said. "Read only preview." "Appropriate." The desk in front of him expanded. Rows of entries appeared in a language his brain somehow understood. Short lines like "minor time hiccup in pocket dimension 3B," corrected sequence ordering in local memory records, spin cluster drift in low impact sector, reset to default alignment, language recursion loop on distant biosphere, poetic structure feeding into cognitive lock, introduced tiny random noise to break loop, introduced tiny random noise to break loop, simple, clear fixes, not grand moves. Just hundreds of tiny nudges to keep things from drifting into bad states. Jeremy felt a soft joy rise in him. These were the kinds of tickets he liked. Strange but harmless, neat little puzzles, each with a small solution. "I like this," he said quietly. "Then we will formalize access." Isravel said. A single line appeared on the nearest pane. In clear words he could not misunderstand. "Offer junior Entropy support. Accept." He did not hesitate long. Not because he was brave, but because this felt oddly natural, like a job he had already been doing, now just moved one layer deeper. "Accept," he said. The panes brightened. Somewhere in the gray office far beyond his sight, a huge system noted the change and updated a log. Somewhere, other maintainers saw a new name on a long list. "We will begin with limited tasks," Isravel said. "You will return to your apartment now. When your mind is next in a similar state, we will show you your cue." The office dimmed around the edges. Jeremy felt the shape of his body in the chair. Again, the old fabric under his hands. The desert heat pressed faintly at the edge of his awareness. "Jeremy," Isravel added, just before the space faded. "Your curiosity is not a problem. It is a resource. We simply need to aim it." He let those words settle in his mind like a warm blanket. The gray office faded. The soft lines and endless desks of light fell away. The hum of his Phoenix apartment grew louder again. The glow of his monitors returned, showing his old data windows, as if very little time had passed. Jeremy found himself back in his chair, staring at the same cosmic background grid. His heart was steady, his hands were calm. On the edge of his screen, a new icon waited. He lay on his back and stared at the ceiling for a few seconds. The memory of the gray office, of Israel, of the endless logs sat in his head like something too solid to be a dream. He reached for his bedside screen and blinked at the time. No missing hours, no strange jumps, just a late night and an early morning. He sat up slowly. "Okay," he said to himself, voice rough. It carried no name he could read in normal terms. But when he looked at it, he knew what it meant. He had a ticket queue now. Outside, the city of Phoenix slept under its warm, careful sky, unaware that one of its quiet data workers had just joined the help desk for reality itself. Jerma's alarm rang at 9 in the morning, but he was already awake. Sunlight pushed through the filters on his window, turned down to a soft gold by the building's climate film. The plants on the sill looked half asleep, their leaves curled just a little from the dry air. The city outside gave off a low, steady hum. Reality tech support. He made coffee, trying not to spill the grounds on the counter this time. The smell was sharp and familiar. His muscles moved through the same old steps. Fill, set, tap, wait. It calmed him. The world did not feel like it had a maintainer watching it. It just felt like morning. In the small mirror by the sink, his face looked normal. Brown eyes, slight shadows under them, hair pushed back, no mark on his forehead. No glowing symbol. Just Jeremy Kline, freelancer, quiet person, rent-payer. He sat at his desk, coffee in hand, and woke his main screen. The same data windows from last night came back up. The cosmic background grid, a script panel, a half-written message on the forum about the universal Easter egg that now seemed too simple for what he knew. In the bottom corner, the new icon waited. Not a picture, not a word, just a tiny shifting mark that his brain tagged as Q without knowing how. He stared at it for a long breath, then clicked. The room around him did not fully vanish this time. It just blurred at the edges. The desk stayed under his hands. The chair stayed under him, but a second layer slid over his vision, like a light overlay. The gray office did not appear in full. Instead, a single surface floated in front of him, like a pane pulled from that other space. It showed a list, ticket IDs, short summaries, status tags. Jeremy let out a slow breath. It really was a help desk. "Welcome back, Jeremy," Israel's voice said, calm and clear, not from speakers, not from the air, but from the same place that showed him the pain. "You are in limited overlay mode. This will allow you to work while remaining anchored to your baseline environment. So I am at my desk, but also at yours," he said. "Correct," Israel replied. "We will begin with low-impact tickets in distant branches. Read, tag, and suggest patches. I will approve or deny." He nodded, even though they could not see it in a normal sense. "Okay," he said. Show me the first one. The top line expanded. Ticket hashtag E9 phone 2 3B scope pocket dimension archive test low complexity issue time hiccups causing minor event repeats impact contained non-critical status awaiting review. A short description unfolded under it. In this pocket dimension, local time frames occasionally repeat segments of approximately 3.7 seconds for individual observers. Events replay with minor changes, leading to confusion and small memory stress. No larger causality break detected. Suggested. Either smooth sequence or document as local quirk. Jeremy read slowly, then called up the log. A visual popped up, a tiny world with only a few simple structures like a training ground. Small beings walked through it. Now and then, one would raise a hand, drop an object, then watch as the same moment played twice, almost the same, with only a different blink or breath. The logs showed a pattern. Each repeat came when two internal processes in that dimension tried to update the same event marker. They were not harmful, but they made the local minds restless. So this is like a simple simulation with a small race condition, Jeremy said. Yes. Isravel said, we use it for training and test scripts. It is archived but still active. Your task. Classify, decide if we leave it, or propose a simple smoothing patch. He watched a small being drop a stone 3 times in almost the same way, then walk away with a frown. Do they adapt? Jeremy asked. Slowly, Isravel said, some of them begin to treat the repeats as normal. Others grow anxious. In his own work, if a log glitch repeated and upset users but did not break the system, he still fixed it. Stability mattered even for small minds. I'd patch it, Jeremy said. If this is just a test space and they don't need the hiccups. I'd set a rule that forbids direct overlaps in those update calls. Let whoever owns the dimension add them back if they want them. Draft the patch, Isravel replied. A small text box appeared. His fingers twitched on his physical keyboard, even though he was not really typing there. In the overlay, his thoughts slid into neat lines. He wrote a short change note. In simple language, proposed, add a small random offset to event update timing when 2 processes try to modify the same frame. If conflict detected, second update slides to next frame. This removes full repeats, but keeps small variation. He tagged the risk level as minimal, noted that local minds would remember the old glitches but see no new ones, and marked the impact as user comfort. Isravel reviewed in silence for a moment. Approved, they said. Patch applied. The visual of the pocket dimension shifted. The next time a being reached for an object, there was a tiny pause, but no repeat. Life went on. No one cheered. No one even knew. But a small, useless loop had been smoothed away. A warm, quiet feeling settled in Jeremy's chest. This was work he understood. Next ticket, he said. The list scrolled. Ticket #SC 44A0 19 scope spin cluster mid-distance sector issue drift and spin alignment beyond expected tolerance impact None yet, but could grow status. Awaiting analysis, he opened it. A cluster of particles in some distant part of reality spun with tight rules, like a tiny machine. Their spins were supposed to stay in a certain pattern. Instead, a small group had begun to drift. Forming an odd knot, logs showed that the knot repeated in similar clusters in other sectors. Each time, it began with a small misset local constant at the time the cluster formed. The constant differed only in the 9th decimal place, but that was enough to let drift grow over long spans. "Is this dangerous?" Jeremy asked. "Not directly," Isravel said. "But if many such knots form, they can produce large-scale noise and push timelines off predicted tracks. We prefer to correct them early." It felt like finding a bug in a shared library function, easy to miss, but nasty if it spread. "Do you want to reset the clusters?" he asked. "That is high impact," Isravel said. "Preferred. Adjust future formation of such clusters so that the constant is set correctly. For existing knots, we can either let them evolve or slowly bleed off their extra spin into ambient noise." Jeremy thought, "So we create a small damping rule for clusters with that tag," he said. "Nothing violent, just a tiny bias that steers them back to normal over time." "Write it," Isravel said. He drafted another note. "Propose adding a correction factor to the formation function for spin cluster type 19 on detection of constant deviation in 9th decimal place. Apply gentle counterspin bias across next-end cycles, so cluster converges to standard alignment without large jumps." He tagged it as preventative maintenance, the kind of phrase he had used often in normal jobs. "Approved," Isravel said. "You are accurate and cautious. This is good." Ticket after ticket passed in front of him. A language recursion loop on a distant biosphere where a certain poetic form had become so catchy that minds locked into it and could not form new ideas. He watched logs from that place, poems about poems, songs about songs, until culture froze. "Break the loop with a little randomness in their thought patterns," Jeremy suggested, "just enough that they tire of the same form." He wrote a patch, introduced tiny extra noise in the way a certain brain receptor fired when they heard that rhythm, not enough to harm them, just enough to dull the joy of repeating the same shape. Isravel approved it. Over time, the minds there slowly shifted to new styles, still poetic, but not trapped. A misaligned gravity constant in a tiny pocket dimension used for structural tests, where things kept floating a little too high and then snapping down. The local beings were simple training constructs. The effect had no charm, only annoyance. "Recalibrate gravity in that pocket to match the default for its class," Jeremy wrote. "Log the change so future tests account for it." He kept going. Time seemed soft here. Hours might have passed, but he did not feel tired. He felt like a mechanic with an endless bench of small, interesting parts. "You are adapting quickly," Isravel noted at some point. "This is just bigger data," he said. "Same kind of problems. Not everyone sees it that way," they said. "Many new recruits push for dramatic changes. You focus on small, clean fixes. "I don't want to break anything," he said. "I just want it to run right." A new ticket opened, marked with a subtle icon he had not seen. 7Z09. Eoscope. Timeline branch. Earth-adjacent issue. Researcher approaching substrate-relevant physics domain impact. Potential contact candidate status. Review for recruitment flag. Jeremy sat up straighter. The description showed a human name. Dara Amini. Age 28. Location Earth. Primary timeline, but far from Phoenix. Her work logs scrolled by. Advanced work on quantum gravity, simulation of deep constants, analysis of strange correlations in cosmic rays. He read a short summary. This baseline researcher is modeling patterns that intersect with layer 0 metadata. Current path suggests a 0.72 probability of near-contact event within 10 years. Options: block, redirect, or recruit. His chest tightened a little. Dara's setup looked a lot like his, only more formal. Lab access grants, students, her notes brimmed with quiet energy. She was chasing something real. "Do we stop her?" he asked. "What would you suggest?" Isravel said. He scrolled more. Dara had written careful comments about not publishing certain wild ideas until she could test them better. She had a history of sharing code openly. Her log showed late nights, sharpened by strong tea and dry jokes to herself. She reminded him of him, in some sideways way. "If she keeps going, shall see the prime tags, or something like them," he said. "Or touch a version flag, then you have another access issue." "Yes," Isravel said, "we have handled such cases by adding noise to data, or by adjusting life events to slow research. That prevents early contact but also wastes potential skill." "That prevents early contact but also wastes potential skill. Your role is to flag likely candidates." Jeremy opened her personal logs in more detail, feeling a little uneasy at reading her life like this. He saw notes to herself about not caring for public attention, about wanting clean models more than praise. He saw comments to a friend about how she wished there was a way to just fix the math under everything without all the grand politics. "She fits," he said slowly. "Curious, but not power-hungry. Shares results. Prefers the work to the spotlight." He did not like the idea of blocking her. It felt like a sloppy fix, like hiding a bug under more junk. "What if she could do what I'm doing?" he asked. "Join support. Careful access. Monitored." "That is a recruitment path," Isravel said. "Higher-tier maintainers make final decisions." He hesitated. "Though I can't be sure," he added. "We never can," Isravel said. "Mark your assessment." "That is enough." He opened the flag form and filled it. Candidate shows stable, long-term curiosity, and low drama in public and private logs. Focus on understanding, not control. Likely to accept a support role if given a clear frame for it. Risk possible distress at early contact. Suggest slow approach. He saved it. The ticket status changed to flagged for higher review. You have now altered the future trajectory of a mind on your Earth, Isravel said. He felt a chill, but it was not fear. It was the weight of the act. I didn't change her, he said quietly. I just moved her into a different queue. That is all we do. In truth, Isravel replied. We move things into different queues. The work continued. He learned how reality's structure was laid out as layers and branches. A diagram panel showed him his own timeline, a long, bright line with many faint side paths where small tests had run and then been folded back or archived. Each timeline had version flags in its constants, a tiny bit extra in Planck's constant here. A slight change in a dark energy factor there, like build numbers in a software project. They told maintainers which rule set a universe ran. He saw how timelines were sharded and archived. When a major event went differently, a shard might grow for a while, then be closed and stored like a backup. Change requests sat beside these archived lines, ready to be applied if someone chose to merge their rules into a main branch. He also saw the changelog for layer 0, a long, sober history of every base rule change. Most entries were from times far before his universe existed. A few were recent, small notes about entropy handling, error reporting improvements, safer pocket dimension defaults. He did not touch any of those. He just read, feeling a deep, strange comfort in knowing that someone, somewhere, kept such careful track. His own work sat at the edges. Little comments like fixed hiccup in pocket dimension 3b per J Kline suggestion or spin cluster correction factor added thanks to junior support. No one on Earth would ever read these lines. But they were real. Hours later, Isravel dimmed the overlay. This is enough for today, they said. Your baseline body requires rest and normal tasks. We do not pull you too far from your life. Jeremy blinked back into full focus on his apartment. The coffee in his mug had gone cold. The city hum had shifted to a busier tone. Notifications from his regular clients waited in a corner window. A request for a data cleaning job. A bug report in a dashboard. He gave a small laugh. Reality fix in the morning, client dashboard in the afternoon, he muttered. Very balanced. He answered the client messages, wrote a quote, fixed a silly bug in a chart axis. His fingers flew over the keys in familiar patterns. Yet part of his mind stayed with the gray pane he had seen, with the endless list of tickets. That night, when the city cooled again and the heat shield shifted color, he poured fresh coffee, dimmed the lights, and sat back down. The Q icon pulsed softly. Back to work, he said. He clicked it. The overlay slid in, gentle and sure. Ticket hash R2201 BA scope small biosphere. Early tech stage issue. Local calendar drift causing misaligned planting cycles. Impact rising famine probabilities. Status pending. He smiled a little. Let's fix your calendar, he said. And far away, in a place whose sun no human eye would ever see, a small change began, guided by a quiet man in Phoenix who liked clean, stable systems and neat, stable systems and neat Baid, clear notes that almost no one would ever read. Jeremiah's life settled into a strange, steady rhythm. By day, he fixed normal things. A broken filter in a city traffic model, a missing field in a climate dashboard, a messy sensor feed from an old satellite. Clients thanked him in short, neat messages, and paid him just enough to keep the rent safe. By night, he fixed stranger things. The Q icon would glow faintly in the corner of his screen. When he let his mind drift into that deep, focused state, the gray overlay would slide in. Tickets would line up, calm and waiting. Fix a small phase bug in a teaching pocket where young minds learned basic cause and effect. Tag a weird noise in a distant star field so a higher maintainer could examine it. Suggest a slow and gentle correction to a fragile culture that had almost logic bombed itself with a bad ritual. Nothing loud, nothing heroic, just clean work. Weeks passed. Phoenix stayed hot, but stable under its shields. The plants on his windowsill grew a little taller. He bought a new mug and kept the old one out of habit. Now and then, he checked on ticket hate. 7C09. EA. Daramini's file grew with small additions. A higher tier maintainer had tagged her as candidate under observation. They had eased her path in little ways. A grant review that went smoother than expected, a lab equipment order that came a bit earlier, a small health scare that turned out fine, but made her value rest more. No heavy hand, just small nudges to give her time and space to think. Jeremy liked that. It felt kind. Then, one night, a different kind of ticket appeared near the top of his queue. Ticket #M root raw scope, resolved timeline branch near primary issue, recursion anomaly similar to Kline contact pattern impact, potential strain on future merges status. Review with maintainer. The title alone made his skin prickle, similar to Kline contact pattern. He opened it. A clean summary laid out before him. In resolved branch T alpha 419, a baseline analyst identified layer 0 prime tag pattern in background data, triggering contact and provisional access. Outcome branch closed. Recruit reassigned. Recursion pattern now appears across several near primary branches, indicating that similar baseline mines will continue to locate prime tag markers. This may cause repeated access events and stress merge processes. Under that, a short note. Reviewer, Isravel requests Kline input. A visual of the resolved branch came up. He watched it play like a compressed story. In that branch, another person, not him, had done something very close to what he had done. Stared at the data, built a script, tripped over the prime markers, and touched a restricted layer, a contact, a quiet talk, a support offer. Then, later, when that branch tried to merge back into a main line, the logs showed trouble. Two versions of reality, both with subtle changes from two different low-level recruits, tried to join. Tiny differences in how they had fixed little problems grew into larger mismatches. Nothing blew up, but the merge took time and extra care. We do not wish to repeat that long process too often, Isravel said. Their voice came in as the overlay sharpened. We can manage it, but cost rises with each similar case. Jeremy read the line 3 times. Other people like me will keep finding the primes, he said. Yes, Isravel said. Your curiosity profile is rare, but not unique. Many timelines produce such minds, given enough time and access to data. In most runs, they see near misses. In some, they hit the marker exactly. This forms a recursion anomaly, because we keep having the same kind of contact again and again, he said, across different branches. Correct, Isravel replied. Repeat contact events are not bad in themselves, but unmanaged, they add extra work and risk during branch merges. Higher tier maintainers have discussed options. There were 3 simple options listed. Option A, block. Add noise around prime tag markers in all branches where such baseline mines are likely. Nudge lives away from deep space data work. Reduce chance of contact to near zero. Option B. Case by case. Handle each new contact as a special event. Recruit if safe. Erase if not. Accept higher merge cost as price of flexibility. Option C. Managed pathway. Define a standard, low-impact path for such mines. Same support role, same limits, same access layers. Fold this into the larger system so that future contacts are less chaotic. He read them in silence. I felt wrong. The idea of blocking people like Dara or like that other analyst in the resolved branch rubbed him the wrong way. It felt like closing a door and pretending it had never been there. B was what they were doing now. It worked, but it was messy. C felt like something he had spent his life doing, turning chaos into a stable, reusable process. You want my thoughts, he said. Yes, Isravel said. You are the current live case for this pattern in your primary branch. Your point of view is useful. He took a breath and tried to speak as clearly as he could. If you block it, he said, pointing with his eyes at option A, you hurt more than you know. You stop people from following their honest interest. You twist data. You twist lives. Yes, it keeps your logs clean, but at a high human cost. And curious minds will still find something. They always do. Isravel listened without comment. Case by case, Jeremy went on, looking at option B. You already see it creates trouble. Every new contact has its own shape. Different permissions, different fixes, different effects. When you merge branches, you have to untangle all that. It's like handling bug reports in a code base with no standard process. Everything is special. Everything is slow. And option C